Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's June the 9th, and I'm joined today by Alison McConnell. How are you, Alison?
All right, thanks, Tony. Yourself?
I'm very well, and as usual, I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle. You can see that there. Now, first things first, we say thank you every day to our sponsors, OneFootball. Get downloading the OneFootball app. It's the one-stop shop for scores, news, lineups, transfer rumours, live streaming, match highlights, much more. Just immerse yourself in the digital football world and have the best personal digital football experience there is out there. It's a cracking app. It's really good. I recommend all the Celtic Way subscribers to have a look at it. And as you can also see running across the bottom, you want to support top class journalism covering the club you love. You know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and you can enjoy a free 30-day trial on us. That's a free 30-day trial on the Celtic Way, and I implore you to take that up and subscribe, and you can see all the cracking stuff that we do. Now, Alison, there's only one man that people are talking about today, and it's Anthony Ralston. What a first start for Scotland, and what a goal. We spoke off air and we both came to the conclusion that his header was Larsson-esque. But what a display. I mean,
I think he'll be delighted with it. I think it's maybe his season in microcosm, isn't it? Just to compound the expectations. I think what you would have to say is he seized his chance at international level. It'll be a really interesting lineup now against Ireland at the weekend. I think you would have to think that he's done enough to keep his place at that right wing back berth. I thought it was an excellent display from him, and I think the header was excellent. I think one that any striker would have been pleased with, and I think it caps off a really memorable campaign for him. I think we've spoken about it before. When everyone is fit at Celtic, I'm not sure that he is a first team start, but he's certainly done enough to be considered a very reliable deputy in that role. And I think he'll fancy his chances of going and putting pressure under Juranovic next season to play on a more consistent basis, as he did in the first half of this season, and really pushing now to cement that place in the Scotland side.
I used to laugh at this moniker, Alison Ralstinho. It's just had one of those seasons, hasn't he? It's just gone from strength to strength and high to high. And we can pick out various moments like the header at Ross County, the header at Easter Road against Hibs. But I also thought, see his assist for Kyogo's goal in the 6-0 game against Motherwell. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Lifted it over the top.
Yeah, a player playing at the top of his own game, bringing his A game. And a lot of people say he's full of guts and endeavour, but he's got some skill there and talent as well. I like to it, So I think he deserves everything he gets.
Absolutely. I think what you really would say too is I think you'd have to applaud the boy's character. I don't know him at all on a personal level other than brief interviews at time, but I think just given the criticism that there had been around him at the start of the season and over the summer, I think everyone had written off his chances at Celtic. I think no one would have cast a backwards glance at his time at the club come to an end last year. I think to be aware of that, and I think he's grown up as a Celtic fan. His family are Celtic fans. He's lived in Glasgow all his life. I think to be aware of that noise, and I think there's no way that you wouldn't be, and still to come in and just buckle down, concentrate on yourself, listen to the manager, and really go and apply yourself and try and do what it is that he wants you to do. I think it speaks volumes for him as a person and the kind of mentality that he has. And I think, I would agree with you. I think you would have to be pleased for him for what he's done this season and just how he has reversed a significant tide of opinion.
Now, how much of that is down to the manager as well? Alison, the fact that he's placed his faith in Anthony Ralston, and he's probably one of those guys that's been able to say to Ralston, as you said there, it's hard to ignore, but he's probably told him to block out the noise, and he's been able to do that, and that's part of Anthony Ralston's character. But the manager's probably encouraged him to do that because he couldn't ignore it.
Yeah, I'm sure the manager probably sat and offered the squad an indication in the very opening days of his reign at Celtic. This is how I want to play. This is how I want you to play. I'm sure there would have been specifics in terms of the fullbacks. We've spoken about this before, playing as inverted fullbacks. I'm sure he would have spoken about this on the training pitch, possibly off the training pitch. This is how I want you to play. This is what I want you to do. And I think if you give instruction like that, the onus is then on individuals to go away, to take it on board, to apply themselves. I think you would have to say that Tony Ralston done everything that was asked of him this season and a bit more. I think there still are deficiencies in his game at times. Of course there are, but I think he's proven himself to be very capable at this level. And and I think most people would have been delighted for him yesterday and last night when he scored that goal. It's just vindication for hard work and just sheer graft this season.
And he scores goals, Alison.
Well, you mentioned that.
Scores great goals, you know what I mean? Really,
you mentioned that goal at Ross County. There's an argument to say it was one of the most important goals of the entire season. I think, had Celtic not won that game in Dingwall, mid-December, I think it could, the complexion of the league and the psychology around it would have been very, very different. I think that there's, when you look at the season, that night was one of the real key evenings of the campaign, and what was it, 97th minute or something, that goal was scored. One of the real defining moments of the season.
And like you say, we don't particularly know him as a person. We get to see him every now and again when he's put up at press interviews, but he just comes across as a really decent fella as well, doesn't he? In terms of, he just knows his role in the team, and he's always on the down low, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he comes across as fairly grounded. I think he comes across as level-headed. I'd say at one point, I remember interviewing him as a very young boy. I think when him and Mikey Johnson, Brendan Rodgers had given them their debuts. He's Anthony. I remember asking him, "Are you Anthony or are you Tony?"
Yeah.
He said, "No, I'm Anthony." That's the only real thing of note that I would take away. But I think he comes across as just a grounded player who's trying to do his best at the club. I think he's spoken well before about his daughter. He's got a wee girl. I think it just maybe gave him a focus and an intent of really applying himself and getting the absolute maximum return out of his career. And I think certainly he'll be delighted with how this season has gone and what's happened over the last 12 months.
Yeah, just has to follow that up now, doesn't he? But David Bradley now, he's kicking on now. Yes, indeed he is. He is indeed. And there's something else. Jerry McCann comes in and says, "Well done, Anthony Ralston. He had an amazing game." When Alan McCoist is praising your header, Alison, you know you've done something right. He was full of praise for him in the commentary box last night. So, and David Bradley comes back in. He is solid to come through all that. Tony, I totally agree. It takes a certain amount of character and depth of character, as you've touched upon, Alison, and now he can kind of bask in the glory of the season he's had and want to replicate it. But I think, as you say as well, he surely must play against Ireland on Saturday.
I think you've got to say he's done enough to keep his place. I would absolutely agree. I think he gave a really strong account of himself. I think everyone's a genius with hindsight, I think, but there was real criticism about the squad selection and team selection for the game against Ukraine last Wednesday night, and I think some people had thought about Ralston being in. I have to say, I hadn't thought Ralston was in with a chance for that game. I thought Stephen O'Donnell would have played. I think Steve Clark is quite clearly trying out different things in the right back role, and if you look at the last two games, Anthony Ralston's performance, I think, would suggest that he keeps it for Saturday.
Yeah. David Bradley comes back in and says he's getting to be a bit of a leader as well. I mean, he is leading by example, certainly when he's on the football field. David Ferguson says it was through gritted teeth, though. I don't know if he's talking about
Alan McCoist, praise him.
I'm Alan McCoist, yes. Or even myself. Now, I've gone on record. In last season, I said that if Ralston left, nobody would have batted an eyelid. Probably a bit like yourself. But he's, and I put this in print, and I'll say it again, he's rammed my words down my throat, and there's nobody more delighted about that than myself, because I want Celtic players to do well. But I'm specifically delighted for Ralston because of the criticism that he endured, and not so much scathing from myself. I just thought maybe his time had came and gone at Celtic, but certainly not. And big up to the manager for seeing that potential and unlocking it, and big up to Ralston as well for having the season he's had. And there is nobody more delighted than me to see him play as well as he has. And I'm sure, well, apart from the Ralston family, I would imagine, but yeah. And I'm delighted that he's done that, Alison. And I think, as you say, that he can really challenge Juranovic next summer or next season for that right back berth.
Yeah, I think he has to. I think that's it. Listen, that will be the intention. Absolutely. I think you would have to say, if you're looking at just now, Juranovic is in possession of the first team. Ralston will push him all the way, but I certainly think that's what he has to be aiming for, and I think he's capable of it. I think the other thing you would have to say is that next season, especially the opening half of the season, will be intense from the get-go. I think when you look at when the World Cup comes and the fact that Celtic have a Champions League campaign to negotiate and the league games, it's a very fraught opening 4 or 5 months to the season. So if you're playing 3 games over the course of a week for 4 or 5 months, I think there has to be balance in the squad, and I think there has to be cover and there has to be depth. I think Ralston will get plenty of game time next season.
Yeah, and the manager likes his rotation policy, Alison, so he will play.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I think he'll definitely be given opportunities at times to play. I would go back to saying I think Juranovic is first choice in that position at the minute. I think Ralston has a capability of really pushing him for that and putting him under pressure for it, which is what you want. I think you need that competition for a healthy squad. I think you want the competitive element to bring out the best in players and keep them on their toes. And I think Ralston certainly gives you that, which is a serious turnaround from what the perception would have been this time last year.
Yeah, I saw a comment last night that if people are surprised by Ralston's performance last night in a Scotland jersey, then they haven't been watching last season, and I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think from the get-go, I think he came in at a very difficult time. I think those opening few weeks of Ange Postecoglou's reign were tough, just given the personnel, the injury issues, the magnitude of the games, going straight into a Champions League qualifier, losing it, going to Tynecastle, losing in the opening night of the season. I think circumstances were difficult. I think it was fairly fraught, but I think he came in with a purpose. I think he came in with an energy and an application and compounded people quite quickly. And I think that's to be applauded.
Me for one. Now, we're talking about pushing people and pushing for their place. Celtic, Alison, we touched upon it yesterday, but it's now come to light that Celtic have made contact with Benjamin Seagreaves representatives, and it's moved on a bit, so they might be recruiting Benjamin Seagreaves as a backup goalkeeper, but you spoke about he'll not be coming in just to be backup because he'll have confidence in his own ability to push Joe Hart for that starting shirt. Now, you say it's always good to have that healthy competition for places, but that's now moved on a bit. Do you see Benjamin Seagreaves maybe taking up that challenge?
Without question, I think every player backs themselves. If you're walking into a new club, you're not walking in there thinking, I'm happy to be a fringe player or I'm happy to play second fiddle. In your own head, you're thinking, I'm good enough to play. I'm going into challenge to play. And again, comes back to what we just said there about Juranovic and about Ralston. I think you want that competitive element. I think it's to the benefit of the squad. I think it takes away any kind of complacency about selection choices. And I think it's necessary for a big club who compete on different fronts to have that. I think it's important. And I wouldn't doubt at all if the move for Seagreaves comes to fruition, I think he'll be thinking, I'm coming in to play.
Yeah, Neil Morrison comes in here, Alison, and says, the question is, do we need another goalie at all if Hart is number one, being back up with new deal, remember? Well, Celtic seem to think so, don't they, which is why they've approached these representatives. So, again, it's like everything else. We trust the manager's judgment on this. David Bradley comes in and, like you, Alan, says, I think he can challenge Hart. And Frank comes in and says, good point, nearly about needing another goalkeeper. But Sean Curran then says Brain drops to third choice. That would kind of be my thinking as well. If Seagrease comes in, I think he's not only just challenging for the number one position, but I think he certainly becomes your number two.
Oh yeah, I would agree, and I do think you need 3 first choice goalkeepers.
So
I think you do, and I know we spoke yesterday too, about the young boy in the B team, but I think you need 3 senior goalkeepers, especially when you look at certain stages over the course of last year. Celtic lost a number of players in the same position. I think it's sensible to have 3.
And as you rightfully pointed out, Alison, that period from July to November when the World Cup starts, it's going to be particularly fraught. And you could be looking at sometimes 3 games a week. Now you need all your players fit and ready for that, and you need a depth of squad, as you say, and options, because Celtic fell victim to the very thing you were talking about there. Certain players getting injured in the same position. They don't want to be caught out like that again, do they?
Yeah, it's a really intense start to the season. I think the only 3 midweek nights are for international games once the season starts. I could be wrong in that, but I'm fairly sure there are very, very few free midweek nights when the calendar starts. It's incredibly intense. I think you do need a significant squad to cope with that, especially when you look at you look at the demands that are going to be placed in players. If you're playing Champions League football, they're tough games to come through. I do think you need a depth of squad.
And you look at the magnitude of those games, as you said, Alison, the Champions League, they're just mouth-watering clashes as it is. But I imagine as well that Andrew will want to get off to a better start in the league campaign than he did last season. Celtic will want to hit the ground running, won't they, in all competitions?
I think it's night and day from last year, from where they were. I think the foundations this season have already been built. They're in place now. I think there's a stability at the club that just wasn't there 12 months ago. There's not the same rebuilding campaign. I think, if memory serves me correct, I think it was 16 players who were brought in across the course of 2 windows. I don't think you need anywhere near that level of surgery this summer. It's about tweaking and adding rather than building and forming. And I think when you have that level of solidity, there is also an established trust now at the club between manager and player, because they can see his philosophy has worked, it took root, they can see the success it has brought. So I think they are a world away from where they were when Ange Postecoglou first came in, and I think it goes without saying. I think any Celtic manager approaches the start of a domestic campaign with the ambition of winning everything that they go into and making a solid start. I think that it's a remit that stays the same and is applicable for every single season.
Excellent. Now, another player, Alison, who might get international get a game tonight is Georgios Giakoumakis for Greece against Cyprus. Is an interesting one. I would like to see him get that international recognition and see if he can replicate his club form for Greece. But it's an intriguing one, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm sure he had a very strong end to the season, a really strong second half of the season. I think he's a player who's not short in confidence. I think when we think about having a bit of self-belief, I think he'll be straight in there and fancying himself to top off what's been a decent few months with some international recognition and possibly a goal. Now,
the kind of opposite of Anthony Ralston in the press situation, Alison, we like it when Georgios Giakoumakis speaks, don't we?
Listen, if you're a journalist, you like any kind of colourful copy, and he's certainly provided that, which is to be warmly welcomed.
But I applauded the manager on it as well when he was asked about the time when Giakoumakis said he felt Celtic would win the league. One, he was proven right, but also the manager said he allows the guys the freedom to think and say what they want. And I thought that was a very good answer, because he could have landed himself in a lot of bother. And I remember saying at the time, I didn't think it was particularly wise, but he's been borne out by his statements, hasn't he? And as long as he can continue to back it up on the park.
Yeah, exactly. I think, to be fair to the player himself, I don't think he said it to be antagonising. I don't think
antagonistic,
to mix the pot. I think I think it was just maybe a reflection of his own belief. As I said, I don't think he's short in confidence. I don't think you have to worry about that. But for us as a journalist, It's lovely to hear. I think we love an opinion. There's nothing better. If you were on the opposite side of the fence, if you were a PR guy, you're probably thinking, no, just rein it in before we get to that point. But I am not discouraging it on any level whatsoever.
I also think he came in and spoke and made those comments after a hat-trick against Dundee. So he would have been up there and his confidence would have been sky high. And as he's since shown, he feels as if he'll score every time he goes on the pitch. So if he can do it at club level, he'll certainly be not short of confidence and think he can do it at international level as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's a big season for him next year. I think there's a real source of intrigue about what that front three might look like if everyone is fit and available, because if you think he finished the league season as joint top scorer.
Yeah, he did.
Even though he'd had a very staccato opening half to the season and didn't play regularly and had injury problems, and it was really only January, the end of January, before he kicked on. So I think if you think he stays fit for the duration of a campaign, you'd have to be looking at a fairly reasonable goal haul coming in if he's selected to play on a regular basis.
Shooting his 2 overhead kicks and everything in the last game, Alison. So he's got it all in his repertoire. But yeah, it's all very positive. And on that positive note, we'll bring the briefing to an end. And I'll just remind you at the bottom, if you can subscribe, you'll get a free 30-day trial of the Celtic Way, and it's worth it. You know what to do. Hit the button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Alison, first class as always. Thanks for that. And we will see you tomorrow. You on tomorrow, Alison?
I am indeed.
Might be the three amigos tomorrow then, reassembled. But thank you. Have a wonderful day, guys. Take care. Thanks for the contributions as well. Appreciate it.
Thanks.